Hey, how's it going, everyone? Last night on Rizzo's Chalked podcast, Nolly of Gen.G was talking about their performance in the most recent Regional 2, the Fall Cup, and talked about how complacency was definitely a factor in their Swiss results due to the fact of them placing second place and going the distance against FaZe, all that kind of stuff. And then back-to-back second place finishes, they're still rewarded. They're the first team to qualify for the major. Like, things are going well for Gen.G, but their Swiss results weren't all that great. Nolly chalks that up to complacency. He states this is part of the reason as to why they dropped 3-0 or 0-3 in their perspective to NRG. While I do agree with part of this, I went back and watched the replays and I kind of looked at their results and some of the off plays that they had and mechanical mistakes. And again, they're human, they make mistakes. I do think there was some notable things that NRG is attempting to implement into their gameplay that is of note. I think there are things that NRG is most definitely doing so it better suits the meta of what Rocket League is becoming, with more bumps, more high aggression, certain things like that. I think the foundation of NRG is still there, and I think the core of NRG isn't changing anytime soon. Stellar defense, good counterattacks, high percentage, effective plays. But there is a couple things that I've noticed from NRG that I want to point out. I have 3 plays that I'm going to showcase in this video, and before I do so, I'm curious what you guys all think. At the end of this video, let me know in the comments what you think. Gen.G, obviously, like I mentioned, has clutched a major. NRG is tied for 5th place right now against G2 and has a really good chance of making the major as well, depending on how things go in the 3rd and final regional. But hopefully these plays give you something to look forward to, and if you're an NRG fan, something to be excited about moving into the last regional of the fall split. So the first replay, or the first play in general that I want to pay attention to, actually comes in Game 2. Game 1 was pretty straightforward, not a whole lot going on. There's just a couple of really big mistakes out of Gen.G where someone would rotate. I think Jack went for boost when he wasn't supposed to, and then there's another time where like Nolly made a too far wide rotation and 2 players on the left-hand side got beat. So off the rotation is just a winning kickoff. They apply pressure. They end up getting a goal. Not a whole lot going on. Pretty standard for NRG, I would say. But there's 2 things that I want to pay attention to that I've really enjoyed so far in this particular play in itself. This game, there is 2 moments where you're seeing a bit stronger emphasis on midfield rotation, cutting the boost, and then the person who is closest trying to just cut in to delay a challenge or at least force an issue. And you're going to see that, I think, roughly around the 3-minute mark when the game gets into the play. Kickoff goals have definitely been there, so I can kind of speed up to that. But the challenges and the opportunities that they're creating for themselves, I think, happen right around here, if I remember correctly. There is a little bit of overlap and a little bit of urgency to the play that's happening. I guess I can zoom out to give you guys a better angle. But you're going to see it from, I think, Squishy and Justin here in just a little bit. So while applying pressure, you see Squishy and Justin rotating back to that same boost. Justin cuts it off, and the reason why he does this is because the ball isn't in direct possession of the Gen.G team. He's going to grab this boost and then force an issue, or at least try to get a body in the way so they can't have a crossfield pass. The assumption, and I can probably pull up a telestrator tool here. Again, this is something that I kind of watched, and it just kind of struck a chord with me, but you're going to see Chronic try to go up and then probably play this long ball to Nolly somewhere in this area for a redirect and a shot. Quick counterattack. A lot of teams do it really well. NRG, in my opinion, is still one of the better ones at it. So Chronic can't get to it because it hits ceiling. Justin then turns on that boost and immediately challenges Jack. While he doesn't connect, it does force Jack to make a touch to maybe not the ideal route, but it's still carrying around that pattern and forcing all 3 players to get involved. Because of that, it does force a lane, and it makes it really easy for Garrett in particular. Let me make this telestrate a little bit bigger to recognize, okay, yeah, ball's going here. Makes sense. So as soon as that happens, he's able to cut that off. They keep that challenge in the midfield, and now it's up to Squishy to make a save. Squishy doesn't get enough credit for the things that he's doing, but being challenged by 2 players who are going for bump-heavy plays, which is the current meta, to recognize he's the last one back, he has to make a save here, and he has to make that decision before Chronic gets a touch. Otherwise, he's in a 1v1. He's probably in trouble. So immediate recognition, goes, wins a challenge, and it delays that goal. From there, the thing I want to point out most is the difference in the way that NRG is approaching the offense. Justin has a solo play, air dribble, he fakes it, goes underneath. It's just a good individual play. Quintessential for NRG. But what happens off the kickoff is more of the emphasis that I'm trying to make with NRG and the things that I'm noticing. So, again, we go into the kickoff. Ball plays into the corner. Justin rotates back, gets boost. Squishy challenges super deep from the far end. But as we move up, Justin's going to win another 50. And a demo on the backwards rotation. Squishy, thank you again recognizing that, yes, demos are important. You've got one player up. You've got Chronic on the other side of the field. By getting rid of this player, you have a wide open net. You are creating an opportunity and the ability to sustain offense. You can go and deny this boost once Justin lands and goes for that unless Nolly beats him to it. You can demo here, maybe bump Chronic on his way back. Either way, you are providing Justin and Garrett a sustained offense of 1v2. Like, you have a really good opportunity by just getting rid of this player. These are the small things that I think you're starting to recognize more in NRG's offense. So, Squishy gets a demo. Makes it pretty easy for Garrett as long as he gets a touch. It's a wide open net. Awesome to see out of NRG. Hopefully they continue to do that. The next play comes in a couple different parts. And again, it's crazy how much it actually involves Squishy being the emphasis. There's a lot of talk in the Chalk podcast about how Squishy doesn't like demos, puts him on tilt. We put an emphasis on this. But Squishy's doing a lot of the enforcing. You see him on the far back side over here. He rotated in through. This boost wasn't up. So he goes over here and rotates back into mid. Again, you've got two players. Again, Squishy recognizing the capability by, as the third man, going and applying pressure. Rather than being passive, sitting on defense, waiting for a counterattack, having to sustain that defense, if you go and challenge in the midfield or play aggressively in the defense, into the offense and bring that into the midfield, it allows them to sustain offense or find some better ways. And ironically enough, this play actually doesn't work out for them until he makes an additional effort. So right now, you've got two players in the same lane, if you want to call it. The way that I describe lanes is lane 1 is anything, if I could draw a straight line, anything from far post and over. Lane 2 is in between the posts. This is 1, this is 2, and then anything near post and over is another lane. So you've got two players in the same lane. Usually don't want to have that overlap because it just makes it easier. So if a touch goes cross field, like, you're in a tough spot. Quick give and go, depending on who's open. So right now, NRG does have possession. Garrett is the one expressing the threat. But immediately, Squishy recognizing, okay, Justin's going to rotate back and be that third man, as we call it. Squishy, who was third, then becomes second to go and aggress. Garrett's still technically one. He's going to rotate out. Again, basically the checks and balances of Rocket League, if you want to explain it in a simplistic way. Am I closest to the ball? Can I get to the ball first? Do I have the boost to get to the ball? So on and so forth. Make these split-second decisions, and that is essentially the best way to decide, do I go for ball or not? But what Squishy is doing is he's forcing an issue. Chronic has the ball. He's facing north-south. He has the ability to flick it past. He can do a bunch of different things. Squishy can either ego challenge and try to predict where the touch is as Nolly's rotating back. He still has backup with Justin, who's probably going to get this boost and come back in. But primarily, Squishy is trying to force the option that Chronic has. He wants to apply pressure, so he forces a flick, whether he commits to it or not. Squishy doesn't even have to go for this challenge as long as it makes it look like Chronic is going to respect his positioning. And that's exactly what happens. Squishy ends up coming in relatively slow. And what looks like is a challenge, Chronic plays quickly, and Squishy, because he has provided that space, isn't able to get a touch on the ball to sustain it, but it ends up working out that they end up bumping Chronic, applying that pressure, and then he turns it into a back pass. Justin's sitting, he's got the 100 boost, he can sit on top of it, and yeah, it applies a little bit of pressure, but because of that possession change, it does force two players to commit, and now leaves Nolly in that 1v1. As long as they get a beat, as long as they force an issue, which Nolly has a good idea here, but the positioning and the way that they've applied this, and this is where I think you're starting to see both old and NRG, both old and new NRG kind of merging. Where you see these good counterattacks, you see the defensive front. So Squishy with the new meta, trying to apply pressure, trying to make sure that they don't have a bunch of gap in the midfield, force an issue, force a back pass. The patience on defense. Justin's waiting for the play to develop. He knows he needs to buy time for his defense to rotate back. He's going to force a 50 on Chronic. He's going to do all these things to make sure that they have time. And by forcing that issue, now the players are in space. You've got Garrett who can make this save near post. Garrett can rotate in. He can cover here if he needs to. If the shot goes wide, Squishy can hopefully come up and make a save here. And then Justin, worst case scenario, will settle back in near after the play develops. But because of that, it does. Garrett, perfect read, clears it downfield. And Nolly recognizes this and goes, oh, hey, this is a great play to throw at midfield. Scary thing is you look at Justin's positioning. He's facing north-south. He's ready to go and challenge this. He's waiting to read this play. Squishy again, corner, rotates back post. Justin's facing, ready to help. Garrett applying pressure to force an issue. So Nolly, split second, sees the ball. He's like, yeah, I'll play it mid. I've got a player rotating in who can take a shot and redirect. Maybe Jack goes for a demo on rotation out. Play develops. It's a pass in field. Justin reads it perfectly. It's a wide open net. again, you talk about the origin of play and where it leads to, and maybe I'm overlooking it, but there's little things like this that I really enjoy out of NRG, with a challenge, forcing an issue, trying to maintain possession. Go for the, slow play, slow it down, force an issue, make sure the touches aren't as great. But that's like a perfect meld, like a perfect mold of like both energy of the old and the new. Still smart challenges, still smart plays, still slowing it down and buying time for your team, but very purposeful is how I would describe it. And it's being paired with like demos backs on rotation and everything else. All right, for the third play, there's a couple factors that I want to talk about, and I'm just going to be an overflowing conversation. There's a lot of things to point out. I'm going to try to make this quick as well for this last one. Perspective of Squishy, just because I think Squishy's been a pretty big proponent of opening things up. Again, another demo, you're starting to see him do those in rotation a little bit more. It'd be interesting to see if more of the teammates do that, like after they deny corner boost, if they go and apply that. But some of the challenging decisions are pretty interesting throughout this play. A couple of the mechanics and stuff, and I can understand the complacency side from where Nolly's coming from and some of the touches that weren't as good and why they don't look as solidified. But low boost, Squishy's going to deny mid, kind of rotate through, and some play develops. There's actually one that I thought would actually normally be a goal from Gen.G. I think it was like an infield pass. This is just a good save from Garrett, so credit to him. But primarily it's been Garrett with the demos that's been going for a couple things, and it's good to see that Squishy's also trying to apply those more than people want to give credit for. And he's doing some bullying off the ball. So I think this is overall where the play begins that I want to focus on. He decides to back off on this. Again, a lot of credit being given to the different players. The expectation that, and Squishy actually ends up benefiting from this, if he would have challenged it a little bit more aggressively. So this play develops. Chronic goes for it. Squishy sees this and goes, okay, I can either challenge. Chronic goes, gets a flip reset, and then scoops it over the top of me, and I'm out of position. Instead, he backs off, lets the play develop. Chronic also recognizes that he has a space, so he settles it down. As soon as he settles it down, you have two options. You can either A, let this play develop again. You can try to, fake challenge, maybe go for a demo. Maybe Squishy instead just decides to go for the challenge, or he goes for a demo and jack and lets Chronic throw the possession back. My recommendation, challenge Chronic because you don't want to let him have a free air dribble. Okay? Who does that? Challenges him, gives him the space, the respect's given both ways, and the play develops as usual. Squishy with low boost just throws it on target, denies some boost, denies it, and dodges the demo from Jack. Gets called off here, and the play develops. A couple things that are really cool. Number one, let's go to Justin's perspective. Justin, after winning this in the corner, Chronic makes a good read, plays it to the side. Demos Nolly. I don't know if it's intentional or not. Nolly kind of drives and gets himself killed here. But by applying pressure slightly to Chronic, Chronic actually does something that I respect a lot of him as a ones player. Justin is in a really good position to bully him off of this, but it's more so Garrett. Most people would see this, grab the boost, go for an air dribble, play it in the mid. Garrett recognizes, go up, play it high, force a challenge here, maybe kicks in the mid, and then whoever's rotating through, which is Squishy. Squishy's actually rotating super far back, which is kind of the theory craft I'm going for. So that's from their perspective. I want to focus on Squishy. So Squishy throws possession. This is where he denies the corner boost, dodges the demo from Jack. Looks like he's going to cut in, but Justin calls him off, so he rotates out. He decides to go super far back here. And this is where I'm curious on what it could lead to if they don't. And I'm not saying anything about this is good or bad. It's just kind of the recognition of the way the game plays. By Squishy going super far back there, rather than like moving upfield, potentially going for a demo, and Garrett doesn't actually go up that side wall. He actually has to aerial from the ground and still wins a challenge. I'm curious on if, okay, there was a demo, you take that risk, you might get punished for it. And a bunch of shots come in, and eventually they end up scoring off of, I think, like a Nolly, like bad pinch back towards his own half. Squishy, this is, again, standard for NRG. Slow it down with no boost, wait for some time, allow people to get back into position, and then eventually you clear it out. Nolly pinches it back towards his own net, and Justin and Garrett work together to get a demo, pop up, score off the opportunity. So that's primarily just a mistake that's forced by Nolly on accident, and it leads me to believe like these deep rotations and stuff, while are safe, they are the right idea when it comes to making sure that if Justin's challenging upfield and you got Garrett in the midfield, what do we do to approach this? Maybe Justin, if he is rotating that far back, needs to look for demos if they are open. Maybe they are doing this stuff. Maybe these are things they are communicating for. But you just don't see them as frequently as I think they could go for it. Because with the mechanics and the skill set that I think all these guys have, demos, I think they would be pretty dang solid at if they practice it. And there was criticism, I think, from Com as well, saying that they don't really play twos, like Justin and Squishy don't really play twos. And maybe by being susceptible to how the twos high level play is, where it is on the ball constantly with a bunch of demos, it would help. But overall, curious what you guys think. I think it's some pretty interesting things to think about as we look at. But overall, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you think NRG can do it? Do we think we're going to see them at the major here in Rotterdam in just a month or so? Again, if you guys enjoy this type of content, maybe we'll do more of these in the future. But like, subscribe, notifications, all that fun stuff. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.